Everyone. I'm here with David Wright. Thanks for being here, David.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
All right, so David is a personal trainer at Fitness for 10, soon to be, if it isn't already, Parkway Athletic Club, just so no one gets confused. That's where he is. That logo behind him will be changing. So David's a personal trainer there. If you're in the area, he's in Carson, go say hi. So we're going to talk about, this is a question that's come up a few times. People asking how do I strengthen my joints and how do I improve balance? Well, I know that you work with a lot of people and that is their objective. And a lot of times it's older people, but you know what? Why not start when you're young? My simple answer, which needs to be clarified, is functional movements. So why don't you tell us a little bit, David, about some of the people you work with, some of the exercises you do, and the results I'm seeing up in our functional area there in Carson are exciting to see. So what are some of the results and some of the things that are happening?
Yeah, so I mean, to be completely honest with some of the different things that I show my clients, I mean, are extremely underrated as far as exercise is concerned. And what I mean by that is, everybody thinks you come into the gym and you got to, you know, run on the treadmill or you got to lift really heavy weights, but they kind of skip the whole the foundation of what we're trying to do. So, for instance, for a lot of my clients, there are some that are older clientele, but there are some that are younger. And really, I look at those. Obviously, everybody's individually their needs are different, but at the same time, everybody has a need to, have good balance, have good, mobility and flexibility. And so, how do we do that? Well, we have to go through some different functional training. You mentioned our functional area upstairs here in Carson City, which is a great area to do a whole bunch of different things. So for my clients, I'll talk about a couple of them specifically are very focused on, my balance isn't very good because of X, Y, or Z, whether it's age or injury or, whatever the reason. What you really have to do is you have to look at, what kind of exercises are going to help with some of those. Sometimes it's as simple as, we're doing, a 1 foot in front of the other and walk across, half of our functional area. And some people might go, well, what good is that going to do? Well, when you're walking and holding, you're off balance, right? So you have to learn how to balance yourself. Your core has to help balance. All sorts of things are in activation there. So something as simple as even walking 1 foot straight in front of the other and holding it there is actually difficult for some people. And we don't know that until we try those things, or, different types of activities that are going to activate not only the core, but other areas. The joints are going to have to be moving because one of the problems we see a lot is people are very sedentary. So their joints are not moving, their muscles are not moving. And so when we start getting that movement going, it's difficult for some people. And also, they're not used to that movement. So we have to get the muscles and the joints kind of conditioned to move and to keep moving, because as we don't do that, everything becomes so stiff and just sits there. And so we want to kind of reverse all that, and let's get some mobility in there because you're less prone to injury as well. That's a whole nother video, but there's a lot of things that come with having that mobility and that flexibility in your joints and in your muscles. And so one of those things is stability that will come with that. When you have that flexibility, you're not so tight. So it's really important to me, with whatever age the clients are, whatever their actual physical health is, it's always important to have that balance and that stability. And so we work a lot on that through various forms of exercise.
You said something at the beginning there that it's underrated. But then as you started to talk, and this is what it really is, it's simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yep.
Especially at first. It's kind of like, you ever try to pat your head and rub your tummy. at first you go, you're laughing at yourself because you're patting and patting and you're rubbing and rubbing. And to get it, to get your brain to do that, sometimes it takes a little bit of practice. It's something as a simple sweeping over the toe, like I see almost all the trainers doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, what's your guess? I would say that probably 75% minimum or more of what our personal trainers are doing are up in that functional area.
Oh, I would agree. I would put myself in that category mainly because, again, it is fairly neglected, or just not even thought about by a lot of people. And it's so unbelievably important because if you want to come in, you want to lift heavy weights, you want to do whatever it is you're coming here to do. That's a key component, is to be able to do things, be able to have that mobility and be able to actually have your body handle heavy movements or not even heavy movements. If you're lifting lighter, like, you have to be able to do that. So a lot of the things like that toe sweep, as a great example, that's one of those things that, as a client has said to me before, actually several of them are like, I'll demonstrate it, of course, as a personal trainer, show them the right way to do it, the right form to do it in, and explain to them, well, here's why you're doing it. And of course, gives you a great stretch in your hamstring there, but also it's going to test your balance. And so you're going to have to start learning on how to balance with one of your legs out and then the other side moving. So you're kind of doing a couple things at once. And so they go, well, what's that going to do for me? And they kind of have this, it's going to do nothing until they start doing it. And they go, man, I have way worse balance than I thought I did. And I like to let them know that's exactly why we're doing this. And that's why we're going to keep doing, this, at every other training session or whatever that cadence might be for that particular client, because it's important. That and many other exercises. That's just a small thing of, it's simple to do because it's simple movements, but it is not easy, especially if your balance is not there. That's why we want to incorporate that to help that balance get where it needs to be.
And it's funny, and I see, and we'll give some other examples of what kind of exercises are we talking about to answer the question on how do we improve balance. But, the functional exercise, I'm up there all the time pushing the sled and stretching a lot more than I used to. And it's really making me feel better. But I see people who just start this stuff, and some of these balance exercises that you guys are doing is like, for instance, I'll see a woman who's trying to do a press, a shoulder press, or a bicep curl with small dumbbells and step back into a lunge at the same time. And then the trainer will show this person this, and they go, oh, okay, they grab the weights, and then boom, it's like they tip, and then you see them because it looks so simple, like we said, simple. So then they try it again and they lose their balance again. And then you start to see the frustration set in.
Oh, yeah.
The first time they tried this, they're going, this is so simple. Why can't I do it? I can only step back a foot and a half without losing my balance instead of stepping back into a full lunge while I'm doing something with my arms. And then maybe the next 3-4 times that you see them there, you see this really focused concentration on their face where they're really, really focusing hard with their mind and they're starting to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I see that phase because I sit up there and I watch this and I see that phase, and it's pretty cool because they're improving the connection between their mind and their body and moving it and balancing. Or maybe you're having them stand on a Bosa ball or something
Mm-hmm.
where they have to stand on something, a little teeter-totter thing where they have to balance,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they and little simple things, but then they really get into it, don't they? They want to
Yeah.
get up there and they want to practice more. They're up there without their personal training, practicing all these balance things. Why? Because it's making their life better.
Yeah, and I've had, just as an example of that, I'm glad you brought up the Bosu ball, because that's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to use for a variety of different exercises because, if you've ever used a Bosa ball before, of course, you can just balance on it, just pure balance and do nothing else, just stand on it in the right form, of course, so you've got your weight distributed evenly. And so I'll have some people do that depending on, their stability and what their level is right at that moment. But then, as we kind of advance, like, okay, we can be near the rail. You're not going to be necessarily touching it because you probably don't need it now. Now we're going to do squats, or now we're going to do some bicep curls, or we're going to, add something additional to it. Because when I step on that ball and I demonstrate, here's what I want you to do, and here's how I want you to do it, they're like, oh, that looks so easy. You're just basically standing on this half ball thing. And then they get on it, they're like, how did you make it look so easy? And I say, it's something that it's taken practice because I'm not the most coordinated and stable person, but I've learned over the years on how to make myself that way. I go, so this is going to happen overnight, but by that like third time you have them do it during the session, they're way more stable. And then that triggers in their mind going, I can do this. So you're right to the point of sometimes I'll see my clients, when they're not training with me, they'll come up, they'll do the Bosu ball, they'll do the different things because they want to improve that. And so the next time they come, they're like, hey, let's do that Bosu ball. And I'm going, oh, really? Okay, let's do it. And they're way better. Why? Because they practiced it. And that's just, one example. I mean, even those exercise bands, when we have them on the ankles and we're doing our forward walk, our backwards walk, our sideways, that's one thing that one of my clients told me, I have a much easier time just through these mobility exercises, getting out of bed in the morning. And, it's less painful, that's a lot easier. And so those are the types of things you really don't realize until you do them. And you go, wow, you know what? It makes a difference.
Yeah, and standing on a Bosa ball is one thing, but doing something when you're on it is a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, it looks so simple because when you do it, it looks like you're just standing on the ground and doing something. But you're combining that balance with the activity or the motion. So let's talk a little bit about joints, especially people that are starting to age. I'm going to say the same thing: functional movements, multiple joint movements, like pushing the sled, getting as much range of motion with your steps as you can, deadlifts, squats, multiple joint movements, and a lot of things that can be done up there, calisthenic type stuff. So how about, have you seen people really improve as far as their joints feeling better?
Yeah, there's quite a few people that, will have various things, a lot of joint issues and things like that. And one of the things that does help them improve has been, a steady amount of exercise, whether that's, our exercise together, trainer and client, or them coming in additional time. But even if maybe they come in 2 days a week with me and that's the only time they come to the gym, but the times before that, for years, maybe they've been very sedentary. So, that has effects. Plus, aging, of course, has effects and health and all those things. But I've seen so much improvement with a lot of people saying, oh, at this joint or that joint hurts, or I have these various conditions and this hurts all the time. Or, one of the things, my joints are yelling at me is one of the ones that I hear a lot from clients. So we work on a lot of those types of movements where it's like we're using multiple joints, we're using these types of things. And so that way it's, you're getting all of that movement in there. And people really just think, well, my joint hurts, so I'm going to not do anything. Well, what that does, of course, is it keeps it nice and tight. And so it's going to keep hurting and it's going to get, injured, pulled, etc. We don't want to do that. Similar to muscles, same idea. We want to get it moving, get those joints moving. And so that way you don't have those issues, or at least not as much. So I've seen a lot of improvement in that with a lot of my clients that have that issue with joints and things hurting, is when they're moving and we're working on those types of movements where we're using those joints. It's actually really great. And you don't have to be lifting heavy weights. It's more about the movement itself, and that's kind of what gets missed as well. As like, oh, I have to go lift these heavy weights, or I have to go and do these other things because I saw it online. No, you need to get there to the gym or wherever you're doing it. In this case, the gym. Get the movement down, start moving, start doing these different movements like we were talking about. Then worry about weight down the road for muscles, but for joints, we just need to get those movements going and keep them consistent. And then, that's great for joint health. And it's shown time and time again with my clients.
Yeah, and you have to use the joint and you have to move the joint. But also sometimes there's an imbalance between muscles. Like maybe the front, your deltoid is weaker or stronger usually than the back. And so sometimes you need to do some rear delt movements to balance those muscles out.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is maybe your hamstrings are weaker than your quads. So sometimes there's an imbalance there.
Yeah, and there's oftentimes an imbalance, and people don't really notice that. Speaking, personally for myself, I've got pretty big hamstrings. Quads have, improved in size, but before that, before the quads really started developing more, I had lack of, the quads in the front. So you're not going to necessarily notice anything right away, but your performance in doing different movements like squats or, other things like that, where you're lifting or doing heavy things or even not so heavy things with your legs, you really do notice a difference when you really balanced out that front and the back side. So just like, our biceps and our triceps generally are going to be much more underdeveloped because I want big biceps and I'm doing curls, but we kind of forget about the back side of our arm, which is very important to have strong triceps at the same time. So it's all about, again, balancing those different sides because, whether it's front and back here, there's always that opposite. So we need to make sure we're trying to, put in an equal amount of work or more if we need to balance a specific side.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that helps everybody. If you've had things that work for you, please put them in the comment section. If you guys like this stuff, please like the video and subscribe. If you want to know more about just what happens in the gym, what to expect at the gym, subscribe to this channel. If you want to hear interviews with nutritionists and doctors and personal trainers, this is a place where maybe you can get some information that's valuable. So, David, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that? If they want to follow you on social media?
So yeah, they can follow me on Instagram at DavidWright_fitness. That's my fitness page about my own personal fitness journey, show prep, stuff like that. And then at Wright Fitness Training on Instagram for the personal training page.
All right, David, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Steve.